আনমিউট করতে হবে না। Alright. Good morning, Noel. Good morning, Ujjwal. Good morning, Alexandra.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Swamiji.
Swamiji.
Good morning, Gunamai.
Good morning, Swami.
Original. Okay, let us start. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my talk today is Holy Mother, human and divine. We celebrated Holy Mother's birthday this year on 5th January, which was during the vacation, rather winter recess. And it was, of course, transmitted through YouTube and Zoom probably, YouTube definitely. But you did not have the occasion. As you know, we are still not really safe for inviting people. So you might have enjoyed, if you call it, our worship service on that particular day. Holy Mother Sarada Devi, as you know, was divine consort of Sri Ramakrishna, and behind me there are 5 pictures, and the picture which is on above my left shoulder is the picture of Holy Mother Sarada Devi. And this is a picture which was taken under the supervision of Sister Nivedita and Sarah Bull. They were Western devotees of Holy Mother Sarada Devi and of course definitely of Swami Vivekananda, under the influence or because of the influence of Swami Vivekananda in the West. They were attracted and came, and Sister Nivedita settled in Kolkata, and Sarabur used to visit time to time. In that way, they were there when this picture was taken. And this picture is worshipped as the best picture of Holy Mother Sarada Devi. We keep in many places on the altar, and also some statues have been made, and they are also worshipped, especially in Jairambati. A marble statue is installed there, and it is worshipped in the temple. In fact, the marble statue of Holy Mother Sarada Devi was installed in Jairambati before Sri Ramakrishna's statue was installed in Belur Math, Kolkata. After her passing away, the devotees, especially under the leadership of Swami Saradananda, became very anxious and very enthusiastic in establishing permanent temples and permanent arrangements for permanency of her legacy, if you call it. So in that way, she was really given that great respect by devotees and monks of her order. She is very important to us and to everybody, of course, but for Ramakrishna mission monks, and also at present there is another organization for women, Sarada Math. They actually worship her as their just the way we worship Sri Ramakrishna in that way. She is the primary ideal of their lives. In that way, she is worshipped there. And as you know that she was born in Jairambati, it is good to recount her life. You know the lives of great saints and their teaching, just remembering is a sort of meditation, and that is helpful in purifying the mind. That means it is a sort of spiritual practice. Though it is a repetition, mantra is a repetition, meditation is a repetition, and also the going through the lives and teachings of great saints are also meditation. And the effect of the meditation is the purification of the mind. That means it helps in the concentration, practice of concentration. Meditation means the practice of concentration. Practice of concentration means that to get rid of the distractions of the mind, and distractions of the mind can be achieved because if we have something which is really attractive to us, and the attractiveness can come in different ways. That means we can be attracted by a good scenery, good person, seeing a good person, beautiful person, and maybe beautiful flower or beautiful music. But all of them are not really spiritual. But if it is spiritual and at the same time it is attractive to the mind, then actually it is very important for us to what is called to use that, and in that way the lives and teachings of holy persons are great help to us. It is a sort of holy company. Holy company, as we know, we always cannot get always, because our situation, circumstances may not permit or may not be practicable for having holy company of a holy person in person. That means holy persons are not really that easily available, and approaching them is also not easily available. So this type of remembrance help us, and they are as good as holy company. So Holy Mother Sarada Devi, she was known as Sarada when she was born, and born in Jairambati she was born. It is not too far from Kolkata. Nowadays it is very easy to go by because of the good road. And soon I believe there will be train service also. They are laying the track for railway line. Of course, there will be no what is called airport. There is nothing like that at present, but we can go to Kolkata and then take a taxi or a car, or in that, or also bus services are there for good bus services. That means ordinary bus service, luxury bus service, all those things are quite available. And there are good arrangements also. By previous arrangements, one can stay there for a few days. Of course, after this pandemic situation, that will start again, but arrangements are there. So people go there and pay respect, stay there, and get what is called great peace of mind and spiritual upliftment. She was born in that village. When she was born, it was almost an unknown village. That means a backward village. There was no communication, and they had to go by foot or by block cart. That was the situation when she was born. But that village was quite prosperous. Prosperous means the farm and fields around were very fertile, and agriculture and such other and cottage industries and all those things were really very good compared to many other places of India, and also especially in Bengal. So she was born in a Brahmin family. Father was a Brahmin. Those they were priests, but they had some landed property. That means small holdings of land were there, which were cultivated, and they had some earning from there. So when she was born, there are different stories. That means that has some spiritual significance. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we see that his father and mother had some spiritual experiences before Sri Ramakrishna was born. And in the same way, in case of Holy Mother Sarada Devi, her mother had some spiritual experiences before she was born. She, she had a dream that Mother Lakshmi came to her inside her body, and then she conceived. So in that way, there is a story, and that place where actually it happened, that also is now earmarked. That means a temple and a center has come up there. So there is a background of spirituality before her birth. That is the point. And she was just like a village girl, was the first and eldest child of the family, and she had some brothers, and I believe one sister was also there. So brothers were there, they're very prominent. And she, from the very childhood, she had the notion of helping others. That means voluntarily. That means it is not that she had to be told that you go and serve such and such people. Voluntarily, that means by nature, she was very helpful to the family mother because the other children were there. So in that way, she was very helpful. And occasionally, there are special occasions which has been highlighted in her life, where she showed exemplary, what is called, compassion for poor people and also hungry people like that. Because in India, as in many places, there used to be flood and famine occasionally. So there was a famine at once during when she was a child, and they had some stock of food grains, and rice was made, and khichdi, that means a sort of uh, rice and beans. They used to be cooked, and they used to be served to the poor people who did not have anything. And in that way, they used that stock for feeding the people during this famine time. And she used to help in serving them, and also that the food used to be served very hot, and she voluntarily, that means without somebody's asking, she used to cool them by fanning those food, because hot food cannot be taken. So she used to help. That shows that she had that common sense from a very childhood how to serve people. Uh, that that is an example. And later on, we see that events of her life, which are really important from the point of view of spirituality. She came to Sri Ramakrishna in a very interesting way. So there was a village drama. That means as an entertainment, they on some occasions they organized yatra, as it is called. So that was organized, and Sri Ramakrishna was visiting, and also she was very little child at that time, so their family was also visiting. And Sri Ramakrishna saw that baby and tell her that she will be my future wife. As she told that he was also a small boy. And in that way, actually, it is said that he pointed out. And later on, actually, it came true. And Sri Ramakrishna was practicing spirituality in Dakshineshwar, and because of the practice, it was very unnatural. So people thought that he has gone mad. So they thought, the parents thought, parents and mother, actually at that time his father has passed away. So his mother thought that probably he is given into marriage, because sometimes parents or guardians feel that a grown-up child is showing some mental disturbances or something which is pertaining to the mind, can be cured by giving them into marriage. And in those days, marriage was arranged marriage. So they brought him to Kamarpukur, that where Sri Ramakrishna's parents, a mother lived and other brothers lived. So he was brought there, and a match was being, they tried to find out a match. And nobody actually wanted to give their daughter to in marriage to Sri Ramakrishna, because they knew the story actually spread around that Sri Ramakrishna has lost his mind. That means he is not in good mental condition. So who will give their daughter to to such a person who is not mentally well? mentally ill actually. So it was, they did not find, so ultimately Sri Ramakrishna himself told that you go to the house of such and such person. That means his father was there, and he pointed out, you go to that house and my bride, would-be bride is there. So they went there, and ultimately it was found that they agreed, and ultimately the marriage was solemnized. In those days, child marriage was quite common, and when she was married, she was either 5 or 6, I believe 6 years old at that time. And Sri Ramakrishna was about 20 or 21 at that time. But the system was like this, that until and unless the girl did not attain to maturity, they did not come. That means after marriage, the girl used to go back to the parents' house, used to live there, and ultimately when she matured, she used to come and shoulder the responsibility of the wife, and then they had their family life started. So in that way, she lived with the parents for quite some time. Then it so happened that Sri Ramakrishna also after marriage went back and intensely started doing spiritual practices, and more words started coming that he is becoming more and more what is called deranged. That means uh, uh, strange things that he is doing, and people are very much upset. And they used to be sorry for this little girl who had married a mad person. That also naturally made her very sorry. That is, she just felt very much upset. And ultimately, it so happened that she herself thought that, let me check for myself. So she proposed to her father that, please take me to the Sineswar, and I want to see whether my husband is really mad. And if she is mad, naturally as a married wife, I need to help her, that means serve her during the time of illness. So father thought that, the parents thought that this is quite a legitimate desire for a grown-up child. So they took her to Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna was living. There are many incidents during the journey that has been what is called noted down. So one of them, that she actually fell in the hands of dacoits, that means highwaymen. And because of her presence of mind, she actually managed to get out of that problem. So these are the, of course, this is on one occasion it happened, and ultimately we see that by seeing her, Sri Ramakrishna actually was very much elated. Elated in a sense, that means she was very happy, but at the same time she was very much worried also, because at that time she used she was not also not very well health-wise at that time, and she has fever and all those. Malaria was quite common in those days. So Sri Ramakrishna arranged for her stay and for treatment and all those things. And when she became what is called well, actually she started serving Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna, that was the first occasion Sri Ramakrishna had met her when she was really attained to maturity. That means she was mature enough to take decision about herself and talk in a mature way. So naturally, Sri Ramakrishna was worried because they are husband and wife. Sri Ramakrishna checked with her. That means he thought that I am the legitimate husband and she is my legitimate wife. And I have to perform my duties to her. And she also had some desires ideas for her future life. So she was asked by Sri Ramakrishna that, well, what do you want? That means there is two alternatives. That means you can really drag me to the family life, have children and all those things. It is a legitimate desire. At the same time, there is another alternative, that I am a spiritual person. That means I want to pursue my spirituality, whether you will be helpful to me in that pursuit. So she actually chose out of her own greatness that she wanted to be a divine consort. That means she wanted to be helpful in her spiritual life. And Sri Ramakrishna is very much relieved. That means that assured Sri Ramakrishna that she will be a good consort of him. So slowly, slowly, Sri Ramakrishna trained her in spirituality, gave initiation and gave her spiritual practices. And ultimately, we see that at one point, Sri Ramakrishna worshipped her as a mother Kali, that means mother goddess. The reason was like this, that means there is in our spiritual literature that women can be worshipped as goddess. And that was, in those days, it was quite not unknown. And Sri Ramakrishna arranged for her worship and then elevated. That means at the moment when, or during the time of the worship, literal worship, that means physically arrangements were done the way we celebrate, that means all the arrangements were done and all the mantras and all those things, that means she was invoked. And spiritually, it was invoked in her, and in that way we see that when this performance was going on, she actually went into deep meditation, samadhi. And Sri Ramakrishna was very much happy finding that she is such a very good spiritual person. So that, and in that way, he respected her by offering her his own spiritual wealth, if you call it, all the knowledge and devotion that he used to confer to Mother Kali. In that way, he worshipped her. And that was a great change, or we can say beginning of her spiritual life. Though she was as a devotee or as a what is called disciplined woman, she was great in, but that elevated in her in a greater height of spirituality. Of course, these things were very it was inside in a sense that outside people did not understand that Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother themselves understood that their path is really spirituality, and they have come for the to help the spiritual seekers in their spiritual life. But at the same time, the householder's duty, Holy Mother actually started performing, because Sri Ramakrishna was practically very ill from the point of view of his health. And by that time, Sri Ramakrishna has started preaching in a sense that means he thought that, well, I have earned this much spirituality. Earned means that means I have known spirituality so deep, and I can help those who can seek spirituality. So he started what is called sharing his spiritual wealth. Seekers started to come to him, and he also used to go to Kolkata, the nearby great city, and he used to find out spiritual seekers and he used to teach them. So that became his mission, and that actually taxed his body very much. That means people used to come, he used to talk almost day and night, at least day and night, also to some extent evening and all those things. And sometimes he used to go to Kolkata, spend time. So that broke down his health very much, and he needed some help from the point of view of what is called food and other comforts. So Holy Mother stayed in a very small room that was not exactly adjoining, but a few years away from Sri Ramakrishna's room. And from there, actually, she used to cook. And also not only for Sri Ramakrishna, but many people used to come. And as an Indian custom demands, if you call it, that means visitors also needed to be taken care of by refreshments and such other things that also she used to conduct from there. Along with that, Sri Ramakrishna had some women devotees also, and they used to go to Holy Mother Sarada Devi and help her in their chores. At the same time, they used to have spiritual company, holy company of Holy Mother Sarada Devi. So in that way, dual purpose, taking care of Sri Ramakrishna and also taking care of the devotees, especially women devotees, she used to do very silently. It is said that many people did not know that she was existing, living in that small place inside the temple complex. Many people did not know, that means devotees. Some people used to, when they came to know, they are surprised that one can live in such a small place and spend so much time taking care of Sri Ramakrishna. So in this way, time was passing as we see, and Sri Ramakrishna ultimately fell very ill with cancer in the throat. And she did whatever she could do from the point of the food and his comfort. And ultimately, we see that he had to be brought in Calcutta, because doctors, good doctors, at that time, Dakshineswar was about 7 miles, maybe half an hour or 45 minutes carriage drive from Kolkata. And great doctors had to, big doctors or well-known doctors, reputed doctors, needed to be, the arrangements were made with them for treatment of Sri Ramakrishna. So it was becoming very difficult. So they thought that it will be easier for the doctors to attend Sri Ramakrishna if he is brought near Kolkata. So they brought him in Kasipur, which is just a mile or on the outskirts of Kolkata. And she was also brought to help in the preparation of food and look to her, to his comforts. So in that way, she came and stayed in that Kasipur house, garden house. It is a big bungalow, and with some surrounding open place. And she used to stay on the first floor and Sri Ramakrishna on the second floor. And food and all those things she used to supply when other devotees also helped. So in that way, she spent some time. First, Sri Ramakrishna was brought into Kolkata in a place called Shampukur, but that place did not suit Sri Ramakrishna. It was very congested, and the air was not that, air was very stuffy. So ultimately, he was brought to Kasipur, where the air was purer, better, and also not too far from Kolkata. And the place was very nice. Now, actually, that is a center of our order. Every year, there is big celebration, and also every day there are services and all those things that is conducted there. So ultimately, we see that Sri Ramakrishna passed away because of his illness. Cancer in those days was incurable. Even today, as you know, it is almost incurable except if it is not really detected early. So after passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, there was a time when she had to undergo very intense hardship, because most of the devotees did not know about her. A few knew, and they did not pay that much attention. They knew that, well, Sri Ramakrishna has passed away, so naturally, just like a Hindu widow, she will go back to her native place and live the rest of her life in doing spiritual practices, and also attending take care of the what is called family or the relatives that are there, and they will also in their turn will take care of her. But it did not happen. When she went back to her husband's place, that means in Kamapukur, she somehow or other was not very comfortable with that treatment. That was a very sad thing. And because Sri Ramakrishna, being a spiritual person, did not leave anything, property and such other things for her. So somehow or other, a few sympathetic persons were they used to take care, but it was a very miserable life that she had to pass through. Ultimately, she decided to stay with her own family. So she moved to Jairambati, and there actually she was quite comfortable, because she was the eldest child of the family, and all the brothers were junior to her, and they respected and also obeyed her. And she knew many people there, and in that way she felt very comfortable in that position, and ultimately she settled in Jairambati. And later on we see, when the devotees came to know about her condition, that means she is living a very hard life. So especially Swami Saradananda, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and also Swami, other Swamis like Swami Yogananda, they felt for her, and made some arrangements for her stay in both the places. First in Jarambati, that means she needed to stay there, so they arranged for her permanent stay, making the what is called cottages and all those things. And also she needed to come to Kolkata. After the passing away, or before the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna had asked Holy Mother Sarada Devi that he could not live long to take care of the devotees. That means after giving spiritual instruction, they needed to be given guidance as time to time. And also some new seekers are there, they also have to be guided. So spiritual guidances were very important. So he taught Holy Mother Sarada Devi how to really give spiritual instructions and how to take care of these seekers and also in general the devotees. So naturally she had to perform those duties that Sri Ramakrishna has entrusted, spiritual duties that Sri Ramakrishna entrusted. So she needed to come to Kolkata also, and sometimes she had to stay in Jarambati also. In that way, in two places, she used to divide her time in these two places. So in Kolkata, at the beginning, when she used to come, some house had to be rented, and where she used to live. Then again, he used to go back to Jarambati. Especially in winter time, she used to be in Jarambati, and during the rainy season, etc., when the condition was very poor in the villages, she used to come to Kolkata. Something like that, according to the necessity, she used to divide her time. So ultimately, Swami Saradananda thought that she should have some permanent place to live in Kolkata. So in that way, he bought a plot of land and then built a small house for her, which is now known as Mayarbadi. Mayarbadi means mother's house. And in Jarambati, as I told you, that means a cottage especially for her, and some property also she had, and that those things she used to take care, and in that way arrangements were made. So when she used to be in Kolkata, naturally a large number of devotees used to come and used to get initiation, and also lady devotees were there. They used to take care of her, and also they used to try to live an ideal life. And in that way, she helped in to live men and women both. That means those who are deserving, that means those who are intention to live a monastic life. That type of candidates actually were groomed by Holy Mother Sarada Devi. So when she was alive, we see, she used to be uh, indirectly in a sense, that means not exactly indirectly, probably more directly, she was a guide for the nascent organization of our order. That means when Ramakrishna order was established, it was established in 1897. Other than also it was informally, the organization was already there. So whenever there was necessity of any advice, not only spiritual, even in mundane things regarding, say, some interpersonal relationship, some difficulties are there, or something related to what is called properties were there. So she used to give very mature advices, which were almost binding. That means not because she told, but it was binding because of the prudence, because she gave such good advices that helped in the formation of this well-known order. At that time, it was nascent order. And Swami Vivekananda and other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, though at the beginning they were not very aware of her spirituality, but later on we see because of her own spiritual stature, they also became very much what is called devoted to her. Devoted to her in a sense, that means they used to think. Swami Vivekananda in one place said that she is Janto Durga. Janto Durga means living Mother Durga. Durga is one form of Mother Goddess, a great form of Mother Goddess, which is very well known in India. So she used to respect her in that way. And other, what to say about other disciples like Swami Saradananda and others, they were very much devoted. Probably Some of them are more devoted to Holy Mother Sarada Devi than they had the opportunity of paying their devotion to Sri Ramakrishna, because she was so nurturing and so practical to them. So in that way, she lived quite some time, then up to the age of 60. Sri Ramakrishna passed away when in 1886, and she was born in 1853. So you see that, and she passed away in 1920. And in that way, we see that she lived a long life. Long means comparatively long life. Sri Ramakrishna lived 51 years, and she lived about say 57 or 60 years. That means this was about 67 years, we see, 53 to 1920. So in that way, she had a long life. But towards the end, we see that she, as you know, that in those days, health condition was very poor, and she contracted fever. That means one very dangerous fever, which is known as Kala Azar, what is called black fever. And now, of course, it is abated because some medicines are there. But in those days, it was fatal. That means if somebody contracted Kala Azar, then the death was imminent. So when she contracted that and discovered, we see that she was suffering in Jarambati. So she was brought in Kolkata for treatment. And the devotees tried their best. Best doctors were actually appointed, but as it has been said, that is incurable. So ultimately, she passed on in Kala Azar. It was in July 20th. And after she passed away, so naturally it was a great blow to the organization and the devotees. But what can be done? So her body was brought to Belur Math. At that time, Belur Math was in the nascent state, but the property was purchased and some buildings were made. So on the bank of the river, the Belur Math, that means the monastery, was established, and her body was brought from Kolkata. Kolkata means on the other side of the Ganges River, and Belur Math is on the other side. West side is Belur Math, and east side is the Dakshineshwar, then Bagbazar, the Holy Mother's house. All these things are in the Kolkata. That is on the eastern part. So her body was brought, and then it is consigned to flame on the ground. And later on, one temple was constructed on that place. And there is a beautiful, what is called, bathing place in front of her temple. Ghat it is called. Ghat means pier in a literal translation. So people every day, even now, now means not in this pandemic situation, but many people actually take bath in the Ganges in front of the temple. Holy Mother Sarada Devi had a great respect or great what is called, she was very much fond of Ganges. She used to take bath when she was in Dakshineshwar every day, early morning, around 3 or 4 o'clock, early morning. She used to get up and used to go to the Ganges, a few steps from her room in Dakshineshwar, and used to take bath there. And then actually she used to sit for meditation and repetition of holy name. And in that way, it is said that she used to repeat the name 100,000 times, despite her pressing work that she used to do for Sri Ramakrishna and other devotees. That was her routine. So that habit actually we see that she always kept. That means early morning, getting up in early morning, doing spiritual practices, and then just like an elderly lady in a house, she used to take care of the devotees and sometimes family members when she used to live in what is called in Jarambati. So in that way, we see that after passing away, many devotees wanted to have her remembered forever. So temples came. One temple was constructed at Belur Math, then another temple was constructed at her native place later on, a little later on, in Jarambati. And marble statue was installed there. In Belur Math, actually, the temple is very small because at that time, this Holy Mother's temple was constructed after the construction of Swami Vivekananda's temple. It is also very small because Swami Vivekananda passed away in 1902 and she passed away in 1920. So naturally, the temple, in this way, temples came. First, Swami Vivekananda's, then Holy Mother's, then actually came Swami Brahmananda's temple. And then actually we see the big temple of Sri Ramakrishna's constructed, which we see in the picture, big temple. Of course, there were temples of Sri Ramakrishna, smaller temple. It is still there in the monastery where Sri Ramakrishna used to be worshipped daily. So this is the what is called, in a nutshell, the what is called the sort of life that she lived. But that is one side of her life. But her life was mostly that that is useful to us now is the life of spiritual administration that she has left for us. That means, as I told you, that she was a great spiritual personality by herself. And sometimes I quote that of her disciples, that there is a system that we find that devotees or the disciples, those who used to take care, they are very meticulous in keeping the records. So it has been found out by research that she actually gave spiritual instructions. Spiritual instruction means showing how to do meditation and how to do what is called a repetition of name, and also how to live a spiritual life for spiritual growth. All those things come under the spiritual initiation. So in that way, according to the records that has been available, so it is more probably she has given about 12,000 persons actually got a direct initiation from her. So it is a big chore that she had performed. And as you know, that she was almost illiterate in a sense. Ramakrishna was illiterate, but he could sign his name. But Holy Mother Sarada Devi did not have the opportunity of studying, in a sense, going to the school or having any schooling, because at that time women was not encouraged to have education. And in fact, she had intention. That means she wanted to read. Probably she could read a little bit, whatever it may, but it did not go far. So though she was completely uneducated in one sense, but she had enormous common sense and enormous practical experience. Of course, education, if it is not utilized for practical purposes, is not useful. But in her case, without education, actually, she had enormous experience and practical experiences. So in that way, actually, she conducted her life and guided spiritual candidates. And as I told you, about 1,200 devotees got initiation from her. It is a formality, and that actually ensures spiritual growth. Many of the devotees how actually we know that the initiation or this spiritual instruction were really fruitful? By observing the lives that they had lived. That means those who got initiation, how they benefited and what type of life they had lived. All those things are really testimony of her great spiritual stature. So as it is said that a tree is known by the fruits that it bears. So in that way, the testimony of her spirituality is reflected by the disciples or the persons who got spiritual instructions for her. And amongst them, we see about 180 disciples, many disciples became monks. That means they renounced and became monks. It is very strange. That means Mother, Holy Mother is what is called householder mother. That means she never took monastic vows. In case of Sri Ramakrishna, we see that he had taken monastic vows. Totapuri was there. So Totapuri, Sri Ramakrishna, when he was a priest at the Kali temple, so he started practicing what is called spirituality and doing worship of Divine Mother, just like according to Tantra system. Tantra system means householders, they can get initiated from a teacher, and in that way the teacher showed the ways, and in that way they used to practice. Sri Ramakrishna did all the practices that was available in a sense that came to him unsought. Sri Ramakrishna had a desire to practice, but it is not that he wanted to test them. It came to him, and then he became curious because he was a really spiritual seeker. That means he wanted to know how actually God can be realized or reached, or have the vision of God. So that was her hobby, if you could say, or his mission, you can say. So in that way, one after another, the practices came to him unsought, and he utilized those opportunities and had the realization through different paths. And in that way, we see that Totapuri came. Totapuri was on the way to what is called Gangasagar. Gangasagar is a holy place on the confluence of Bay of Bengal and Ganges, Ganga River. So he was on his way, but he stopped there at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple because they used to entertain the sadhus, that means roving monks and other poor people. But when he saw Sri Ramakrishna, and when Sri Ramakrishna also saw him, they were attracted to each other spiritually. That means he was a great Sri Ramakrishna understood that he is a realized person. And then after talking to him, he came to know that he had practiced spirituality according to Advaita system, that means Vedantic system. And that was, by that time, Sri Ramakrishna was not aware of any practice of that line, of that system. So he got interested, and Totapuri also very gladly initiated him. And in Advaita system, actually, one had to renounce everything. That means you had to take monastic vows. So Sri Ramakrishna had to give thoughts to that because his mother was living there. And if mother sees that the son has become monk, that will hurt her in the old age. So they, in that way, intelligently, actually, he told Totapuri that I shall take monastic vows, but I shall not inform my father, my mother, and also I shall not take the outside paraphernalia, that means ochre robe and all those things of a monk. But inside, all the performances of the mantras, or all the what is called, all the performances of all the rituals that are necessary, I shall do, and definitely I shall follow the instructions of spiritual practice of Advaita that will instruct me. So they agreed, and in that way, actually, he took initiation, and within 3 days, actually, he had the highest realization. That means Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So that is a very, that astound Totapuri, that how actually a person can get into that stage in such a short time. He himself had practiced for 40 years to reach that state. So whatever it may be, the point is that monastic life, Holy Mother Sarada Devi never took the vow of monasticism. But at the same time, we see that he had disciples. Disciples in a sense that means she formally never gave monastic vows to what is called those who become monks. So what she used to do, she used to initiate, that means mantra diksha can be taken by anybody, that means spiritual directions, how to do spiritual practice. Then those who wanted to become monk, take monastic vows, he used to send them to what is called to Belur Math. That means the direct disciples, they were there, and they used to conduct these monastic vows to them. So in that way, we see 180 young disciples took monastic vows from Belur Math, and then some of them are very great stalwarts. Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna we read, and the Swami who translated that book, and not only he, and all, I shall tell you another thing. First, Swami Nikhilananda was a disciple of Swami Holy Mother Sarada Devi. And there are stories, that means many of them have recounted how actually they came in contact with Holy Mother, how the initiation does happen. They are very interesting stories that are very inspiring. And not only that, just probably we do not pay attention to that, Mahendranath Gupta, original writer of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, who wrote Kathamrita, that means the book in Bengali, he was initiated by Holy Mother Sarada Devi. That means though he was a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, but he did not have the opportunity, formal opportunity of what is called getting Mantra Diksha from Sri Ramakrishna. So in that way, some other disciples of, monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, though they are considered to be the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, they were given Mantra Diksha, that means spiritual initiation by Holy Mother Sarada Devi. One of them was Swami Yogananda, and another was Swami Trigunatitananda, who actually came to San Francisco. So these are the what is called spiritual. In the spiritual field, we see that she had great influence, or her influence is quite palpable. That means immense influence that she had left for what is called for us. So in this way, we see, and these are the what is called, from the point of view of spiritual teacher, he performed all those things, and she has lived, as I told you, she lived quite long. So naturally, a lot of spiritual instructions are given. Books are there where you'll find advices, reminiscences, and in that way, they're very helpful and inspiring. Now, there are certain things which are actually why, whether we tell Sri Ramakrishna to be an incarnation of God. Incarnation of God means just like Buddha and Jesus Christ. That means she had that. His position is in spiritual field. That means it is a sort of our way of looking to spiritual personalities. But what we see in the spiritual history, that some of them are very lofty. Lofty means, that means unreachable. Human beings cannot be like that. So we call them incarnations. That means as if God incarnated as a human being, and that those persons are as good as God, as good as we can think of God. In one place, Swami Vivekananda has said that if you think of God, and if you think, if you go through the lives of these people, these highly spiritual people, that means whom we call incarnation, you'll find that your concept of God will be over what is called superseded by the what is called the lives of these type of persons, because our concept of God is very limited. That means we cannot think of God because our samskaras, that means our thoughts are limited by our own experiences. So we cannot think the loftiness of these people. But when you see these people, actually, they actually surpasses the way you can think of God. So that is why they are called incarnations of God. So point is this: Sri Ramakrishna used to be, has been given that stature. Stature in a sense, that means some people, spiritual people, understood Sri Ramakrishna at that time, and also that was challenged, if you call it, by the Pandits. That means they were also, as we see in the history, that Mathuranath Vishwas, that means the temple authorities organized what is called a deliberation, whether Sri Ramakrishna avatar or not. So one of the teachers of Sri Ramakrishna, Bhairavi Brahmani, actually through the scriptures actually proved that Sri Ramakrishna is an avatar, just like Sri Chaitanya. So others, of course, were also corroborated with that. So in that way, there is, from the point of view of scriptures, also Sri Ramakrishna is incarnation, and also from his life also you see that incomparable spiritual life he had. Now, what is the position of Holy Mother Sarada Devi? Whether she was an incarnation of some goddess or God, because God and goddess in the spiritual field there is no difference. So what was her stature? So naturally that comes. But she did not have the opportunity, or if she was never tested by the Pandits, just Sri Ramakrishna was tested by the Pandits about her spiritual stature, because she was just a village woman, and she hardly used to come in public, and so naturally there was no scope for that. But certain incidents of her life actually is very illuminating. Illuminating in a sense, that means many people actually, the devotees, before coming to her, actually had the vision of her. That means in the form of different gods and goddesses, or the image of different gods and goddesses are melting into her, all those type of spiritual experiences they had. So if we believe on those experiences, naturally that stands into the, that shows that she had that type of, what is called, she is definitely a personality of that stature. That means almost similar to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna himself has said, Avatar says that myself and herself are really same. We have come from the same entity. So the words of an incarnation that she is equal to himself, she is equal to himself, that also carries weight. That means that also is creates an impression in us that she was really an incarnation of Divine Mother. And there are some little incidences of her life also where she herself also admitted. Admitted in a sense that means she actually kept herself busy in the worldly affairs. She had one, what is called handicapped, mentally handicapped niece, the brother's child, daughter. So there was nobody to take care because her mother was also, the mother's wife also deranged. So she had to take care of her. So in that way, that helped her to keep the mind on the worldly plane because her welfare and all those things, she had to think because she is incapable of doing those things. That kept her, that is a sort of anchor that actually kept her tied to the worldly things. But time to time, actually, we see that even some of our relatives also checked. That means they thought as their relative. That means so in that way they did not have any occasion to understand that she is what is called a divinity was there. But one of them, one nephew of Sri Ramakrishna, I believe, and he once had some sort of uh, he was really once had some sort of inkling that she might be an incarnation or some goddess. She was very young at that time, just a boy. And Holy Mother Sarde was quite fond of him. So because they are very free, that child, that young boy was also free, and he has asked Holy Mother that, who are you? And I am your aunt. If see, I am your aunt, what else? No, then actually he insisted that no, I have seen something in you. So you are not really disclosing me. You are telling a lie because you are so free. I don't know why I should tell you a lie. I am your aunt. In that way, she was emphasizing. But ultimately, she said, no, if you are, and then you go. They were actually walking through a field and he was accompanying her from one village to another. Then if you are my aunt, then you go, this is the village, that far you can walk down, I won't go with you. So he was very insistent to get words from her who actually she was really. And ultimately that was a predicament for her. Ultimately she told her that yes, I am what is called Jagadamba, that means I am mother, divine mother. And that actually satisfied that boy. So in that way, occasionally actually, we see that some people have seen, that means in a vision also saw, and some people actually extracted from her. That means the way this small boy actually extracted from her own identity, and she had to admit that. In that way, we see, and another aspect is that spirituality, in the field of spirituality, if a person is really what is called from the point of view of spiritual influence, if the as the time goes, the spiritual influence actually multiplies. That means in a progressive manner. That means it increases. For if some person is a little bit spiritual, that probably has done spirituality, ordinary persons, and died, probably that person's influence will be die with his death itself. One or two persons will be remember, oh, he was a very good person, did a lot of spiritual practice and used to spend some time, some good advices he has given, and that ends the thing. But for a person who are really incarnations, that means of that high personalities, their influences increase progressively as the time passes. Why? Because many people get the benefit of get spiritual benefit by remembering and following her. Because there are seekers, there is a necessity of spirituality, there is a hunger for spirituality. So satisfaction, who can give the satisfaction? So even after their death, their influences increases because they give the what is called the succor to such persons. So that is quite evident. As the time is passing, her influence is really multiplying. Even you think of a village, there are village women all over. So they are also living their lives, and she also lived that type of life. But she was special because her influences are increasing in the spiritual field. So that is another what is called way of seeing or estimating her spirituality. That means her divinity. Without divinity, this cannot happen. So ultimately, you see Jesus Christ, you see Buddha, you see they died. That means they lived. Buddha, of course, lived for a long time. Jesus Christ died, but his influence multiplied because by taking shelter, as it is called in him, actually they got great spiritual succor, benefit. Some of them become what is called realized person. So in case of Holy Mother Sarada Devi, we see that is also evident. So that shows that she was a divine incarnation by herself. So let us stop here today. So our services have started, and as you know, from last Sunday, we have started our new session of this new year. So next Sunday on January 24th, Ishwar Dhananjay is speaking about how meditation will help us get there. That is a subject that he's giving a few talks on meditation. Then we shall continue our classes also. I am conducting the Rajayoga class on Wednesdays at 7:30 on Zoom, and also the discourse on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna on Zoom and YouTube. Yes, on Zoom. That will be on 23rd also. Yesterday also I gave. And Aparakshana, another book on which Ishwar Dhananjay is conducting discussion group, that will be also on Friday, 22nd. So these are the regular activities, but on Zoom and Sunday services on Zoom, as well as live streaming on YouTube, you will be able to watch. Om Madhuvatarithayati Madhuksharanti Sindhavaha Madhi Irno Santoshadhihi Madhunakto Mutashasi Madhumat Parthivagam Rajaha Madhudaurastana Pita Madhumanna Vanaspatihi Madhumagangastu Surjaha Madhirgabo Bhavantunaha Om Madhu Madhu Madhu. Sweet by the winds and the oceans give forth blessedness. May the earths and plants bring us health and happiness. Sweet unto us be the nights and dawns. May every particle of Mother Earth be charged with blessings. May the heavens shower us with benediction. Sweet unto us be the noble forest trees. Sweet unto us be the shining sun. Sweet unto us be the all living creation. Om, sweetness, harmony, peace. Thank you very much for attending this service.
Thank you, Swami
Thank you, Swamiji.
Prabhanandaji.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Good. How are you, Ujjal? Is everything okay?
Yes, Swamiji. Everything is more or less okay.
Mm. Mm.
All right. So we shall see you next Sunday and in classes during the week.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.